Why should people vote for me? Because they have seen my track record. Nakita nila ang akong performance, both as a legislator and as a public servant in general.
Do your share. Don't throw garbage anywhere. A reminder from LR Cares. Stocking water is a must. Tanke is here. Locally produced. International quality. Tanke.
Dow imported. Nature's perfect lunchbox. For perfect eggs, fresh and clean, guaranteed all the time. For orders, text or call 0907-838-7958.
The former city councilor and city administrator, M. Ang, is here with us today. Welcome to DNX.
Thank you, Jules. Thank you, DNX.
And this is the first time nga ara ka dira across me.
On the hot seat, yes.
Not really hot. Yes. You've been very, very busy since like 2 years ago. Tell us what's the experience like.
Well, at the time when Mayor Bing appointed me as city administrator, though I think nag-timing gid that at the same time the World Health Organization declared a pandemic, no, the COVID-19 pandemic, and from then on, sige-sige na lang ta, because we had the lockdowns, we had all the kind of queues, and then now the alert levels and vaccination. So far, amo nang aton yang gintutukan gid, apart from our role as the city administrator. But then, of course, last October 6, when I filed my certificate of candidacy, I have already resigned from my position as the city administrator.
For those nga wala nakabalo, si former councilor, City Ad na lang panawag kung yapon sa imo Si City Ad M. Ang is a former flight attendant, di ba? And I covered...
A long time ago.
A long time ago.
I don't even make any reference.
Cover ta ka the first time nga nagdaog ka konsihal, ako konsihana.
Right.
Strangely, do pareho man gyapon tsura yan, no?
Oh my God. Salamat. Thank you, genetics.
Okay. Now, istoryahan tanay ang very, very critical sa buong topiko. No? It's about the Omicron variant. Anong accurate diri? Are we the first detected case in the Philippines or in Western Visayas?
In Western Visayas.
In Western Visayas.
This is the first case, Omicron variant case in Western Visayas, recorded in Western Visayas, simply because the patient who tested positive for Omicron came to Bacolod after his isolation in Manila. So technically, he was already recovered from COVID at the time na nag-travel siya to Bacolod. And the person who is an OFW is not from Bacolod, he is from Mindanao. His wife is from Pampanga, who happens to be working in one of the BPO companies here in Bacolod. So that is the only reason nga aari di siya sa Bacolod and why he traveled to Bacolod immediately after his isolation. Kabalo ka nga aton nga procedure subong are guidelines for inbound travelers coming from overseas is that pag-abot nila sa Manila, gina-quarantine sila for 5 days and RT-PCR, they have to undergo the RT-PCR test. And depending on the result, that is when, like for example, in this case, since he tested positive, he was transferred to an isolation facility where he completed the 14 days required isolation. However, pag natapos ang iyang isolation, nagwa naman ang result from the Philippine Genome Center that he tested positive for Omicron variant.
So, two things. Ang klaro ang Muslimo. May lain-lain ang pag-report sa media outlets eh. Some are saying he was positive, which is actually true at one point in time. Kaya hindi ka man makarecover kung wala ka nag-positive mo.
Correct, yes.
So he was indeed positive.
Right.
That's one. But pag-abot niya dire, he was technically recovered.
Recovered na siya.
Meaning wala na siya sang simptoma.
Hindi na siya infectious.
Hindi na siya makalaton.
Right.
So amo na ang klaro dira, which makes me wonder, but anyway, sige bait na lang da. Kay ginhimo chapter by chapter ang reporting kisa mo. Ang amo niya we reported as recovered because at this point there's no use to stir panic
yes,
and alarm.
Yes.
We have to be on guard, we have to be cautious, but I don't think that we have to stoke the fires of panic sa aton nga mga pumuluyo. In the end, kita man gyapon ang makuan sinimo, mamayad sinimo.
Right.
Diba? Now, si Tiad, let's talk about Omicron. Ang pamangkot, ano gid ba lang dapat kabalakan sa Omicron variant?
Well, ang Omicron, the reason why people are wary about the Omicron variant entering our area, our province, and our city is because in other places, this has been found to be highly transmissible. As a matter of fact, several times much more transmissible than the Delta variant.
Oh.
Although may mga reports man coming from these countries that have had a surge in Omicron variant cases, nga the symptoms are milder. Milder and siguro akon man na daya ang analysis ko daya and the way I look at it is because the vaccination accomplishment is already high. Ang vaccination rate in most countries is already high. In fact, many countries, first world countries, have already reached the herd immunity. Amo na siguro nga daw na tone down man ang symptoms of whatever variant, no? But so far, ang ila observation sa Omicron, symptoms are milder, but it spreads faster than the other variants.
So, kung in hiligay nun, ang bot silingon, mas makalalaton siya, but hindi siya katulad kakusog sang Delta variant, nga makapatay. Mas taas ang death rate sa Delta, no?
Yes, correct.
But then again, I did interview a nurse, a Filipino nurse, working in Australia, and who is doing research also on COVID. Ang siling niya, which I think is also plausible and logical, nga kabudlay mag-compare sang Delta kag Omicron variant because ang Delta came at a time nga lower ang vaccination rate compared sa
Correct,
Omicron.
exactly.
Ang Omicron taas na gawa.
Yes.
Nag-igo siya at 45% ang vax rate sa Pilipinas.
Not only that, wala labot nga taas ang vaccination rate, dako naman taas naman ang rate of those who are boosted. Ang naka-booster dose na, which increases your protection by up to 80%, according to recent studies.
So, very, very strange, no? Although, I don't know if this is reason to be happy, at least, no? For whatever little blessings they say, nga ang Omicron is not as lethal as Delta. Can we say that based on what's happening now?
Well, a case in point was this OFW nga nag-positive for Omicron. He had J&J vaccination while he was still at work. Go brani siya sa cruise ship and he is ang base ang ilang cruise ship is in Florida. So he received the J&J vaccine back in May. He had his booster dose in November. So essentially, the whole time sang iya nga nag-positive siya for COVID, he was asymptomatic. So kag ang iban nga mga subong for many weeks, no? Hindi ba every 2 weeks kita nag-evaluate kung anong alert level naton diri sa Bacolod. For how many periods na nga nubo ang aton cases, 2 cases per day, 1 case per day, nakatilaw na kita, nag-0 kita. Subong nagsaka naman. Today we have 16 new cases based on the report of the molecular laboratories yesterday. So 16 new cases. Out of 16, may 4 na da nga pregnant and postpartum, bago lang nagbata. Amo ni silang vulnerable, Jules. And the rest, may dara nga naga-chemotherapy, meaning may mga comorbidities, naga-chemotherapy, kag naga-dialysis. The rest are asymptomatic. So a big percentage na lately, even sa mga previous days and weeks, although may ara kita pa isa-isa, pa duwa nga mga bag-o nga mga cases, they are mostly asymptomatic.
But do we see a gradual rise naman sa cases post-holiday?
Yes, yeah. Subong we observe 2 days ago we had 14. Today we have 16 new cases. So there is a trend that the cases are going up.
Trend? Anong possible factors nga nag-influence nila?
Well, we have seen kung ano ang traffic nato during the holidays.
So it was actually
ang ginutok sa mga tao sa mga malls, ang mga parties makita mo sa social media, kadamo sa mga gatherings, public gatherings, social gatherings, mga reunions, siguro nahidlaw ang mga tao. They have been having cabin fever for 20 months. So tsansa na nila nga relax ang aton mga restrictions na ginawa ang mga tao kag of course timing man sa Christmas holidays ara gid sa gwa ang mga tao. And
pero hindi si Jesus ang balasulon ha. Base si Jesus gid mo kay birthday mo.
So this has been projected already by the DOH and the IATF nga post-holiday may ara agad surge. In fact, they say in Metro Manila nga January and February may ara naman bag-o nga surge nga matabo.
Even in Bacolod, we are expecting a surge.
We are anticipating it. We are praying that it does not happen. We are anticipating it. We are prepared. We are ready. Ang aton nga mga facilities, materials, test kits, preparado na kita tanan as of now. Nag-meeting lang kita recently with the mayor. Si Mayor Bing nagpatawag meeting sa Emergency Operations Center. Kaga ang iyang in view of the projection for a new surge nga preparahon ang tanan nga mga kinahanglanon naton, including manpower.
So the lowered quarantine restrictions because of alert level 2 is partly responsible for the increase in cases post the holidays.
Possibly. Yeah, it is possibly one of the reasons also nga relax ang aton nga mga restrictions. Wala na kita ang aton mga guidelines even for travel, even for social gathering. Nag-lessen na. So, isa na karason nga ang mga tao have gathered during the holidays. Naginawa ang mga tao and therefore may tendency gid nga kisaga kalip sa gatherings, for example, especially in parties, makaon mainom kwaon mong imo nga mask. So dira ginada kalabanan nga transmission nga matabo.
Galing kay I understand not from the level of restrictions lang, but from the point of view of culture and tradition. Because culturally and by tradition, gagather gid man kita every Christmas mo.
Right.
Hindi man pwede nga sa sulod sang panimalay kung nagatipon ang tao nga pasudlan mo pulis kag batutahon sila. Kitigakaon sila litson mo, diba? Do killjoy ang gobyerno karon na.
And we have allowed it already. The government has allowed it. All
Indeed.
our protocols and guidelines have already allowed it under alert level 2. So wala man ta rason nga i-restrict mo pa ang mga tao. There's so much. And by the way, kung sa mga relationships pa bala, it's about time that we already move on. We have been under this pandemic for 2 years now.
Yes.
Close to 2 years. Kaga, it is going to stay, unfortunately, whether we like it or not, it's not going away anytime soon. Kita mo lang, ari pang Omicron, subong, amo pa ning threaten sa aton. May bago na naman nga variant nga nakita nila sa Israel, no? So, this will go on. At the beginning of the pandemic, sang naghambal ang mga experts nga this will continue until 2025. Hindi ta magpati, no? 2027, though hindi ta magpati, but it is bound to happen kaga the way we see it. This will not go away soon. So we have to learn to discipline ourselves. We have to learn how to live with COVID around, disciplining ourselves to always maintain and observe the minimum public health standards. Meaning, way of life na gid nato niya ang to keep our masks on, nga kung damo tao, madistansya kita, hindi kita magsagad palapit, especially if they don't come from our own bubble. Kung hindi ta sila upod sa household or sa workplace, kinanglan maintain tagid ang physical distancing and avoid crowded places as much as possible.
Yes.
And then of course, mas mayo gid nga vaccinated, and if you are already eligible for booster dose, mas mayo pa gid nga naka-booster dose na.
May somewhat controversial nga proposal si Dr. Miraflor, no? Although katuan ko na dugay-dugay. But if you look at what happened in December, I don't know if it's also, even from a medical point of view, if it's also good, because you cannot keep people inside their homes forever.
Definitely.
You
Absolutely.
have to give them a form of release, no?
Not only that, because they also need to work.
Indeed.
They have, mga earning activities naton. Either you work or you have a business. Kinanglan magwa gid ta eh. This has been going on for too long, and we cannot afford it to linger for even longer.
And I don't know if the lowered restrictions also helped in a way to bringing back the sanity of people. Mental health issue man mo. Nga hindi ka gwa, hindi ka socialize. Mayo pa gani ang pispis kiti makatipon sila yung tao. I mean, it's been a long while.
Yes.
Dulo de buenas lang kami, kaya exempted kami mo. Makalibot-libot kami, although ako may comorbidities ko, but it's part of my job, no?
Yeah.
No, anyway, si Tiad, medyo controversial ang proposal ni Dr. Miraflor nga those who are unvaccinated should not be allowed to go outside their homes. Proposal pa man lang na. But what do you think of this?
Actually, it's not controversial. That is a resolution of the MMDA. And Chairman Abalos, in an official statement, said that it was agreed in principle by the mayors of Metro Manila.
Oh.
So, ang tagsa-tagsa ka mga LGUs sa Metro Manila are already crafting their respective ordinances. What it says essentially is that all those who are unvaccinated should stay home. They can only go out for essential, so like if they want to go to a doctor, a dentist, essential services, no, to avail of essential services or to purchase essential goods. Kadto sila sa pharmacy to buy their medicines or buy their food, pwede sila kagwa. They are not allowed, kung unvaccinated ka, in this resolution of the MMDA, you are not allowed to go out and use public transportation. So, may amo pa na nga restriction. You cannot dine in a restaurant, either dine in sa enclosed nga establishment or al fresco. You are not allowed to do that. So, damo restrictions only for those who are unvaccinated.
Because this would go back again to the debate since the start of the pandemic. Number one, some people believe that it's a fake pandemic. Number two, some people don't want to be vaccinated. I guess we have to balance things, no? Nga, okay, we talk about civil rights, civil liberties, but we're talking about a public health issue also.
Right.
Ambot kung paano ni ma-resolve sa gobyerno ni. Because some see it as an issue of rights eh. Nga if you restrict people from going out, that's actually preventing liberty of movement. But then again, I don't know kung paano to ni ensure man balancing act ni. Because you have people who are vaccinated, definitely based on statistics, more than those who don't want to be vaccinated. So paano mo na karon i-ensure?
Yeah, well, your human rights will, you know, mas taas ang rights ng public who will be affected by your action, or in that case inaction kay wala ka nagpa-vaccinate. It is not mandatory, it is voluntary, but then because you increase the risk of persons around you to have the virus, so therefore gina-restrict ina siya. We are under a pandemic, and you know, ang government has emergency power, so pwede na subong at this point in time, pwede gidya ma-impose whatever the government sees or feels that can best protect the majority or the public.
Over the past few months, you have somewhat become an authority also about COVID as executive directors ng EOC. And for those nga wala pa nakabalo, si City Ad Ang is also a nurse by profession. Did you actually practice your being a nurse?
Actually, no. Right after graduation, I taught. Nagtudlo ko sa Lasal. Where I also, I became a clinical instructor for a year before I ventured into other interests, other lain nga career path. No? So as you have mentioned, I worked in an airline, and then after that, I went into business, and I landed as a public servant. So until now, ari kita diri.
But ang degree mo became very, very useful sa nagpungko.
Definitely. Not only that, even when I was in the airline, it has been very useful. Ang problema ko lang galing kay, when I was working in the airline, pag may medical emergency on board, ikaw una nga ginatawag sa crew because of your background. Yeah.
Ang good daw safety officer ka, ha? No, well, anyway, from pandemic, let's shift to politics. Nagdalagan ka again. Tell us a bit, you've been city councilor for how long?
For 3 terms.
Three full terms.
3 full terms. I first ran in 2010, then ran for re-election in 2013, and my last and final terms ang 2016. So natapos ang third term ko sa 2019, and then si Mayor Bing appointed me as city administrator in 2020.
So 9 years as councilor.
Yeah, I have been councilor for 9 years.
But why this desire to serve again as city councilor?
Well, ari makita gyapon sa public service, Jules, and aside, of course, it's a cliche na magambal nga ti passion mo ni desire mo nga magbulig ka. That's besides the point, no? But nakita ko, especially during the pandemic, that there are so many things nga pwede pa naton ma-institutionalize that will prepare us for similar mga situations in the future, no? Not only pandemic, but other emergencies and public health issues nga pwede naton ma-legislate or ma-institutionalize. Having learned so much during the pandemic, kay wala untat ang meeting coordination with the IATF, with the national government agencies involved, the DOH, the ILG, and so many others, no, and the regional offices. We also constantly communicate with experts in the pandemic and infectious disease specialists, the medical community, not only in Bacolod but in the region and in the national government level. So damo ta natun-an kag damo ko nabalaan, which I feel I can contribute kung makabalik kita sa City Council, Jules.
Ang Grupo Progreso ng mga candidates who are actively involved sa EOC operations, ikaw and si Dr. Chris Sorongon. Your party mate, si Dr. Sorongon,
Actually, during the pandemic, halos tanan kami mga councilors, they have their role.
May mga action.
Councilor Cindy Rojas was in charge of the returning residents, no? Until
Si
now.
Ising.
Councilor Israel Salanga was in charge of and still in charge of the OFW.
Novero.
Si Councilor Novero is in charge of our vaccination centers as well as our quarantine facilities. Si Councilor Baribar was also pretty much involved. In fact, he authored ang ining aton mga minimum public health standards ordinances.
Yes.
Si Councilor Dindo Ramos sa aton nga exit plan, being a CPA lawyer na siya kaga maayo siya so siya nag-head man sang aton nga exit plan, no, for pandemic planning naton. And then sino pa si damo ang halos tanan
si Vice Elcid was also head of the
naturally si ang aton Vice Mayor Elcid Familiaran is the head of our local IATF, no, Interagency Task Force Against COVID. Wala labot sina iya hands-on si Vice Mayor in almost all of our pandemic response, our COVID response programs. He was very hands-on kaga ara gina si Vice Mayor in from planning to the implementation sa aton mga programs together with the mayor.
Anong imong nga legislative centerpiece for these elections?
Health gyapon.
Tell us a bit about that.
Sorry. Yeah, it is still health, and it's very timely, Jules, that right now, like everyone is talking about the hospital that is now about to start, no, and it will become a reality now that there is already a MOA with the donor, with the land donor of the land where the hospital will be built, and it's going to be actually a public health complex kay ara da ang aton nga City Health Office will also be built there kag i-transfer na dira. So it's very timely that with sa subong sa Grupo Progreso, it's a priority sa agenda sa Grupo Progreso kag we have in fact i-mention mo, we also have a doctor in our slate. And I being a registered nurse also, and with the background nga ara kita in the forefront, in the front lines during the pandemic, sigurado ko may damo kita ma-contribute dira.
Why should people vote for you?
Why should people vote for me? Because they have seen my track record. Nakita nila ang akon performance both as a legislator and as a public servant in general. In whatever role that I have undertaken in the city government, whether as a councilor, halin sa beginning during the first term, modesty aside, Jules, kadamo man sang aton nga mga mapinuslanon nga mga ordinances that I authored. I am one of those who has authored numerous ordinances. Hindi man kita lawyer, but I have endeavored, I have toiled and worked hard to craft ordinances that would help our city. So because of my track record, my service, ang akon performance as a public servant, nakita man na sang aton siguro nga mga constituents and our brothers and sisters in Bacolod, I am sure are aware of what I have contributed in terms of governance and what I can still contribute.
On that note, former city councilor, former city administrator M. Ang, thank you so much.
The pleasure is mine. Thank you very much, DNX.